Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our virtual live public information session on the Organic Waste Diversion Program. My name is Çağla Ergener, Project Manager in Chatham-Kent Waste Management. I'll be moderating for tonight's session. We appreciate you taking the time to join us as we discuss this important initiative that will impact our community. Here are some housekeeping items. We dedicated an hour and a half for this session, and tonight we will be focusing on our organic waste diversion program, a key initiative aimed at enhancing our community's environmental sustainability. Our agenda includes a short presentation that will last about 30-40 minutes, followed by a Q&A session where we will answer your questions. So please feel free to type your questions into comment section at any time. We will gather them and address as many as we can during the Q&A session following the presentation. And also just to remind, this session is live on Facebook and YouTube, and the recording will be available on those platforms for future reference as well. If you can go to, yeah. So the purpose of this online public information session is to provide information about Chatham-Kent Organic Waste Diversion Program and also gather your valuable input on the proposed program. And joining us tonight, we have some key members of our municipal team from Infrastructure and Engineering Services. We have Mr. Ryan Brown, our Director of Public Works, and we have Ms. Huda Oda, our Manager of Waste Management, who will be leading the presentation. And we're fortunate to have them here to share their expertise and insights with us. And once again, I'm Çağla Ergener, Project Manager in Waste Management, and I'll be monitoring the Q&A element of the session. Without further delay, I'll hand over to Huda Oda for a presentation. Thanks, Huda.
Thank you, Jala. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today. I will go through a short presentation to provide kind of some basic foundation and information about the Organic Waste Diversion Program for which we're meeting today. And then following the slide deck, we will have a Q&A session, as Jala has said. So in today's presentation, I'll go through some background information just to make sure we're talking about the same thing. And then talking about why is this important to speak about, why is Chatham-Kent spending so much time and is significant of such a project. And then we're going to put that into Chatham-Kent context and look at our progress so far. So that's where I'm going to spend some more time of the presentation. Near the end of the presentation, then I'm going to provide you with some overview of the next steps that we're looking at for your information. In terms of background, one could say, what is an organic waste diversion program? It's a program that really aims to divert organic waste from the landfill stream. The goal is to reduce that waste at the source, so that's every resident is the source of this waste, or to divert it before collection. So that's kind of where the curb collection hits. And the idea is, of course, not only to promote environmental health, but also to show environmental stewardship and to expand the life of our landfills in Chatham-Kent and Ontario as a whole. When we're talking about organic waste, we're typically talking about household waste generated from leaf and yard type of waste, or your gardening, your clippings, or food waste that's generally generated in the kitchen, like your scrap food or the food that's in the fridge that has gone bad. And there is another category where could be considered as household waste, depending on who you ask and depending on which municipality. That's defined under, for example, compostable packaging. That's actually plastic in nature, but it's compostable, sometimes considered organic waste and included in such programs. And hygiene diapers and or hygienic products are also in that third category there, where I have the little graphic. So what do we do with that, and how is it different than garbage? Garbage goes to the landfill, and that's where it gets treated pretty much at the end of the day. It gets buried underground for a long time. Of course, technology has come forth with many different solutions for how to try and maximize the opportunity of getting energy out of garbage. However, it still is for the most part, a loss of a resource. So with organic waste processing, what's generally accepted as a resource recovery of such waste are two different methods. The first one is anaerobic digestion. And what that means is that the microbes that are working to break down the organic waste and the organic content of that waste is working in the absence of oxygen. And when the microbes do that, they do two things. They produce two things. One is a digestase, so that's pretty much a sludge that could be further used for fertilizer applications in agriculture industry, or they produce biogas, which can then be purified to be used as a natural gas, the natural gas that you use at your households to heat your homes. And that would be renewable natural gas because, again, it's coming from something that's renewable. The second process that's commonly used and also accepted as a resource recovery for organic waste is composting. This is different than the first process because it's aerobic, meaning the microbes that are working to break down the organic matter is working in the presence of oxygen. And I think the majority of us would know we end up with a compost that can be applied, again, in agricultural to the land or to your gardening needs if you're doing this on a small scale. So next we're talking about the significance of this initiative and this program and why we're spending time doing this. There are multiple reasons, of course. I'm not going to go into detail of all of them. But of course, there is high benefit environmentally to diverting waste, to recovering resources and applying that and really achieving a cycle of zero waste or a cyclic waste process. This is especially important when we have in Ontario, we're face to face with a problem about our landfill capacity. In Chatham-Kent, we're lucky to have a landfill that is projected to last for many, many more years. However, Ontario is struggling as a province to find space for landfilling waste, and it's projected to have the capacity to last for the next 10 years, if not less. It's also an industry best practice. So many different municipalities in Ontario have moved with a comprehensive or enhanced organic waste diversion program. And the next schedule here, the table shows kind of how does that work by population. So if we are taking Ontario's population and we're looking at where do Ontarians live in terms of the programs available for them. To the left is a column that shows the different programs. Again, we have leaf and yard waste program and source separated organics. Source separated organics is another term for green bin. And these are the two kinds of programs that typically collect organic waste. And then in the middle column here, we have the actual number of residents in each community that has those programs, and the right column is the percentage of the total Ontario population. So it's highlighted there in the red rectangles that the 98%, almost all of Ontarians, live in a community where they do have some sort of leaf and yard waste program. The vast majority of them live in an area where they have curbside collection of leaf and yard waste. And almost 80% of Ontarians live in a community that has a source separator program. Again, the vast majority of that is happening at the curb. So Chatham-Kent is in that 20% that does not have a source separator program. However, of course, we do have a hybrid leaf and yard waste collection program that is in place. And the third reason I want to highlight here about the significance of this project is the release of Ontario's Food and Organic Waste Policy Statement that was back in 2021, which had set targets for different municipalities based on their population and population density to achieve in terms of recovering and reducing organic waste. So if we're looking at the policy, and this is just really a snapshot of a couple of places in the policy just to highlight why we're doing this and how does it apply to Chatham-Kent. So for municipalities with population that is more than 50,000, as you see in the rectangle in the middle there, so that's Chatham-Kent, it's more than 50,000, but has a population density that is less than 300, which is us again. We have 40 something people per square meter, per square kilometer, sorry. So we fall under category A. For us, then the requirement is to provide collection of food and organic waste in urban settlements. And with that requirement comes a target of having 50% reduction and recovery of food and organic waste generated by single family dwellings by 2025. So 2025 is around the corner. We're in 2024 and we're past half of it. So this is we're trying our best to try and catch up and see where we are in this bigger picture and how we can further achieve the targets. And this is what we've been working on since last year. So we are looking at a comprehensive organic waste diversion program feasibility study. We're determining the implementation of such a program. Part of the program are three components. The first is a green bin program. And for those who are not familiar with such a program, it's pretty much similar to your garbage, where you are putting the waste in some kind of container or cart. You're putting it at the curb, and there's a truck that comes and collects it. Of course, this is going to be a green bin program, meaning that's only dedicated for household scraps, organic scraps, and kitchen scraps. It is, but instead of being taken to landfill, it's taken to a processing facility, either anaerobic or composting facility. So that's for the first component, which is probably the more complicated component out of the three. And the second component is determination of solutions for non-curbside organics diversion. What that means is that you, as the household member, are the one responsible for collecting, processing, and ultimately using the organic waste that you generate at home. That could be through backyard composters or through indoor digesters of organic waste, or both. And again, this is completely dependent on the user of such devices. The third component we're looking at is a review and an enhancement of our leaf and yard waste collection. And that's, of course, collection of your clippings, your sometimes grass, your leaves, your garden plants, and we're looking at whether we should be continuing what we're doing right now. One of the first questions we ask ourselves is, how does our current leaf and yard waste collection program contribute to that diversion target set by the province, and what else can we do to make sure that this is maximized, that potential for the leaf and yard waste collection is maximized? Because again, leaf and yard waste is organic waste, and so if we are doing a good job there, then we could look at how we could close the gap. Such waste, leaf and yard waste, is typically composted aerobically, meaning windrow composting for usage as compost to agricultural processes. In terms of the process of the feasibility study that we are undertaking, we have 4 different phases. The first phase of program development, followed by approvals and procurement, which we hope to have finished next year, and then the production and development of promotion education while we prepare for program implementation in 2027. Under the program development phase, we have multiple milestones. Really, this is where the research development of the program occurs. So as part of that, we have finished a best practices review as well as a jurisdictional scan. We are also taking a waste composition study. And during that process, we're collecting feedback, and we are engaging with the public, not only to provide information, but also to understand what are the needs and demands of our community. We've done that through multiple methods. We have a Let's Talk Chatham-Kent page through a forum tool. We have completed a public survey last month, and this is one of 2 public information sessions that we are conducting to further collect feedback and share information with our public members. And then we're adding all the information we collected in the past 3 milestones into the program design that we are drafting together to put towards in front of council for their review and approval or not. So I'll spend a little bit of time kind of going into detail about what each of these really entail. In terms of the best practices and jurisdictional scan review, we have looked at 20 different municipalities across Ontario. These are listed here. I'm not going to go through each one of them, but you could see that the communities are typically compared or considered comparables to Chatham-Kent in terms of geography, location, and or population. We included municipalities that are neighbors. We included municipalities that are bigger and more urban, like Ottawa and Toronto. We also included municipalities that are more rural in nature, like Norfolk, Oxford counties, as well as the Greater Sudbury. So we have a pretty much a myriad of examples to look at and see what they have been doing for their organic waste diversion. Out of the 20 municipalities that we reviewed, 14 of them do have a green bin program. That's your source separated program at the curb. And these with a green bin program typically follow a weekly collection of such program and move their garbage collection to biweekly. That's the 80% of them have that kind of model. In terms of cart sizes, depends really on the type of collection. For those that use automatic collection, about half of them have the larger carts, 80 to 120, and the ones that have manual collection opt to choose the smaller carts that are 40 or 46 liters in size. Other than what you would typically expect to have as an accepted item in the green bin program, which is your kitchen scraps and whatnot, some municipalities that are big in our nature, more urban, and have population growth that's challenging, they do accept even more waste like diapers and hygiene products in their green bins. And about half of the municipalities that we have looked at either have a long or recently started a pet waste element to their green bin program. Next milestone I would like to highlight is the waste composition study, which is something that we're still undertaking at the moment. The aim of the study is to determine the composition of the material that our residents are putting up at the curb to go to the landfill, and determining how much of that is really organic, and then thereby knowing information about the potential of success or lack thereof of any recommended program. Because Chatham-Kent has two different types of primary collection methods, we have curbside collection for those who live in curbside areas, and we also have majority of the rural residents utilize transfer stations or drop-off depots. We are conducting the composition study at both. So we have a waste audit that is specific for curbside, looking at 100 different households, and we have waste audit that's specific for the drop-off depots. And that way we get a good representation and better understanding of who produces what, if there's any difference between curbside and non-curbside, and just a better understanding of our composition of the waste we send to the landfill. What that really entails is that contractor picks up the garbage, takes it from the resident who comes to the depot or puts at the garbage at the curb for disposal. The contractor bags it, labels it, takes it to a sorting facility, categorizes it, sorts it, and then weighs it, and that provides us with tons of information that can be helpful, especially if we keep on tracking that same information over and over again by doing the composition studies or 1 year after another. That gives us a really good baseline of determining what's happening with our garbage composition and how successful our programs are. For our public engagement initiatives, back in February of this year, we did launch a Let's Talk Chatham-Kent, and the website is address is written there. You can also visit it by just checking the Chatham-Kent waste management pages on the website. I would say it's been quite successful because we have about 2,800 visits so far. We did ask the public who visit this site to share with us their thoughts on having an organic waste diversion program, and we have received 118 different comments. And then the majority of them, through a sentiment analysis, appear to be a positive. And of course, we have some that are negative, some are mixed, and some are neutral. The forum and the site is meant to be a platform where we continue to share with the public updates and information that we receive or conclude throughout the process of this project, and also to receive from them any feedback or questions that they may have. And so this is still open, and it will remain open until the end of this project. And the forum, as well as any other elements of that of that page is open for everybody to participate without needing to register. So if you have not done so, please go ahead and share your thoughts on the website if you'd like. Some of the things we heard from the residents through the forum of the Let's Chatham-Kent webpage is pretty much a good amount of support for the implementation of a green bin program in Chatham-Kent. Some mentioned that we're behind other municipalities, especially those who have been used to a green bin program if they lived outside of Chatham-Kent and then moved in Chatham-Kent. Some concerns were also raised about rodents, about pests, and also about it taking too long for us to implement such a program. Some commenters stressed the need for us to include multiple types of properties like businesses and multi-residential properties in the program so that we make it open for as many types of property owners as possible. Last month, we concluded our survey. The survey was launched on June 17th, so it lasted almost a month. The survey was promoted throughout our social media channels, our website, our posters across Chatham-Kent municipal centers and community stakeholders, as well as the newspapers. And we thankfully have received just under 1,000 responses from Chatham-Kent residents. Again, the survey did not require registration. And we're very thankful for everybody who has participated. Out of the 912 responses, 22 of them were representing businesses. We did have two different surveys that are placed in that initiative. One was aimed to get answers from those who are answering on behalf of their place of residence, and the other aimed to have answers from those who are answering on behalf of their place of business, just to really understand the needs of both business owners as well as homeowners. The difference in questions there, the one was 19, the other was 12. Really, it was the residential survey had a few more questions about leaf and yard waste collection and home composter program that the business survey did not. Otherwise, the survey was very, very similar. One of the questions asked whether or not respondents would like to participate or would participate in a green bin program should it be implemented. And we found 2/3 of respondents saying yes, they would, with 13% saying unsure. So there's a very large interest that we have concluded in the community for a green bin program. Of course, this is still part of the process of gathering information to finalize our design and present it to council. And so the next few slides, I will go through what we have currently as the program design of our organic waste diversion program. The first component is the green bin component, the green bin program here again. And we intend to utilize automatic collection should we go with a green bin program. So that means we're going to be using a cart that is about 80 to 100 liters in size. We would require some kind of lining, and we would have secured locks, like a gravity locks, to ensure that it's not it's difficult or almost pests and or animals can't get into it. And this is something that we've heard back from the respondents as very important. So if you look at the right side of the table, this is the feedback we received about the different elements of the program we are proposing. And so in terms of having a mechanism that prevents animals from getting into the organic green bin cart, the vast majority of respondents says yes, that's something important. And so of course there's cost to it, and so that's all be considered as part of the design. Following the example of all the municipalities that have green bin program, we would collect the green cart on a weekly basis, while we would move the garbage collection to bi-weekly without changing the size of the garbage containers. And of course, with that, there were some concerns shared. The top ones were about rodents, insects, and pests, that may be more than currently with the green bin program, increase in odor issues, and with the move to biweekly garbage collection, the concern was not having enough room with biweekly collection. So with that, I can, we do have some solution in space. We have learnings about these. This is not the first time around. Communities have dealt with issues that may have risen from a green program, and they dealt with it successfully for the most part. So we would be implementing best practices to ensure that these issues, if not eliminated, they are minimized. Still with the green bin program component here, the acceptable items that we would accept in such a program would be food waste, like your fruits and vegetables, peels, meat scraps, bones, nuts, etc., your coffee grounds, your tea bags, oils, grease and fats, shells, eggs or nut shells, non-recyclable food, soiled paper. So what I mean by that is if you have a paper towel that you use to wipe off some grease from your countertop, that would go into your green bin program should we have it. And of course, uh, pet food would also be considered as household food waste that would accept the green bin program. So these are the things that are typical, kind of really by default. This is what is expected to be in a green bin program. However, because as I said before, there are different municipalities that accept other types of waste, like diapers and hygiene products, compostable plastic products, and pet waste. And so these are things. These are the different, the additional items that we were not. We wanted to gather more feedback on and determine the importance of these items for them, how the public felt about them. And so what I have to the right here is a graph showing the different bars show the different element or the acceptable item, and one is not important and going all the way to 5 being very important. So you can see that in the middle here for 2, 3, and 4, we don't have a whole lot of respondents that chose them, but for the most part, really sort of polarized sentiment here, where some, about half, thought these products were important to include in the green bin program, and about the other half was saying no. So it's pretty much yes or no. At this point, we have not concluded anything yet. So this is something that we will again consider. The feedback we received will be considered as well as other factors, and then we will make our recommendation to council as such. Moving to the second part of the organic waste diversion program, which is the non-curbside diversion. What we're looking at here are solutions for those who do not live in curbside areas. So if we are to implement a green bin, there will be areas in Chatham-Kent that will not be serviced, or there is a high chance that there will be areas in Chatham-Kent that will not receive curbside green bin services. And if that's the case, then really what is the need and what is a program that we can have to supplement this for non-curbside residents? And also we're looking at gauging the interest of the public in terms of having a complementary home composting program for curbside residents. So we asked that question. We asked the questions: is it important for you? We asked the question of, would you support the implementation of such a program? And the majority said yes. More than 50% said yes, they would support the implementation and Chatham-Kent investing in home composter program. And when we asked about your interest in participating in such a program, only about 40% of them said yes. So that was a little lower than we thought, but that again gives us some information and food for thought to determine really where we're going to be at and how's that going to fit in our bigger picture of trying to achieve that provincial target while producing as much value for our residents as possible. The last component of the Organic Waste Diversion program is a review and enhancement of the leaf and yard waste collection. For those who do not know, Chatham-Kent does have curbside collection of leaf and yard waste in 8 different communities with varied levels of service in Chatham-Kent. These have been in place since pre-amalgamation, and they just kind of were grandfathered into the Chatham-Kent municipality. The remainder of Chatham-Kent residents rely on 9 leaf and yard depots across Chatham-Kent to dispose of their leaf and yard waste. However, unfortunately, we know that also a significant number of our residents do put this material into the garbage stream, which is something that we want to avoid. So in 2022, we did get endorsement from council to review our current program and to recommend some standardization process of this program. And what we're doing now is trying to determine the contribution of that program currently and how can we standardize it and improve the levels of service so that we can achieve that 50% target by 2025. We asked the public 2 different questions on this topic: whether curbside leaf and yard collection was important to them and the frequency that would meet their needs. So on the first question, The more than 50% of the respondents said that yes, it was important for them to have curbside collection of leaf and yard waste, while the remainder said no, it's or either moderately important, somewhat important, or not important. And in terms of frequency, more than 75% would say biweekly or less would be enough for them or would meet their needs in terms of disposing of leaf and yard waste. So again, this just shows that there's room for improvement for our leaf and yard waste collection service, and we currently have it. We don't have one frequency. Some communities get that weekly, others get it biweekly. Um, those that get it curbside, I mean, and so again, we're taking that into consideration and trying to use it back to draw the bigger picture. So in terms of next steps, we are continuing with our waste composition study, which will spill in 2025 because it is a 4-season study. We are currently in the summer audit. We're going to have a fall audit and we're going to have a spring audit in 2025, and that will finalize the waste composition study project. We are also working on finalizing the program design. So we have a progress report that's going to go to council in October. That's going to include our progress so far, as well as the results of our public engagement initiatives, including this session and the session in 2 weeks. We're working on costings so that we can go to council with a recommended program approval, hopefully in early 2025, that will have detailed costing as well as it will cover the impacts and or the estimation for success of such programs that we're going to put forth. Should we receive those approvals in early 2025, then we will work on procurement next year, and then we will implement the program starting 2026 and into 2027. Again, it really depends on what the end result of the program looks like. And of course, as any waste program, big item of it is the promotion education. And so we're spending quite some time and quite some effort into doing that currently, and we will increase those efforts and the resources we put towards this into the implementation of any of our new programs. So I hope that was helpful. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for your attendance. And if you have any questions, please do type them in the comments. Inshallah, we'll get to them. Appreciate your time. Thank you again.
Thank you, Huda, for the comprehensive and insightful presentation. We truly appreciate the information you shared. So because oftentimes some of the technical language could sound complicated, with the presentation you effectively clarified some of the technical language, hopefully, and provided a clear overview what Chatham-Kent do for and what are the future plans for the organic waste diversion program. So before we move into the Q&A portion of this session, and while attendees add some more comments and questions, I'd like to mention about our upcoming in-person public information session. This will be second and final public information session for this round and after this online session. It will be held on Tuesday, August 27th from 5 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the John D. Bradley Center in Chatham, 565 Richmond Street. And we encourage residents to attend this in-person event to learn more about the organic waste diversion program, share their thoughts, and get involved in the like the process, share their um, feedback with us. Uh, so we have some. Let's go into the questions or like the comment sections. We have Melinda have a comment about how she's surprised the importance of diapers, hygiene products is so low in the ranking in the showing of the survey results. Yes, that's some of the families with kids. There's so much of these items on a daily and monthly basis for most of all the families. Yes, that's correct for some people. And then Melinda asks, why can't leaf and yard waste be mixed in the green bin items? Huda, maybe you can answer that. Or
Yeah, definitely. I'll give it a shot. So, mixing leaf and yard waste with green bin items is not a typical practice in Ontario. It is, though, in some different jurisdictions in Canada. Really, it comes down to the effectiveness of the processing of those materials. So, if you process the material in a mixed manner, then the efficiency will be reduced. If we are separating these material because the leaf and yard waste is high in carbon and in fiber, low in other nutrients and in moisture content, typically speaking, then the decaying and the breakdown of the organic matter differs. And so having more specialized process allows a more high return and high return of the value of, say, green bin program on its own and leaf and yard on its own. Again, because if we're mixing the two, you have varying levels of decay curves, and then that would affect efficiency. I think this is really it. And of course, when talking practically speaking, mixing the two is more convenient for the user, but it does, again, because it does affect the efficiency, it also affects the cost of the processing as well. I hope this had some comments, Melinda. Thank you very much for your question.
yeah, it all depends on the processing facility rules as well. So we have another question from Scott. Are you going to force this on rural residents who don't want or need this program? We already divert our waste for no cost. I think, Huda, you may
Yeah,
jump into that
thank
as
you,
well.
Scott, for the question. So the idea is not to the drive behind. So other than the environmental benefits and the best practices industry, really why we're doing this here in Chatham-Kent at this time is because of that food and organic waste policy by the province. And so our aim is to achieve that target set by the province for us as a community. The target for us is 50% of material recovery and reduction in urban settlements. So we may choose, or council may choose, to make that program kind of blanket program for all of Chatham-Kent. But when we're looking at our numbers and how we achieve that 50%, we want to make sure that we're achieving that 50% reduction in urban settlements. Chatham-Kent is a mix of both urban and rural. And so that really where we're at right now, again, this is not finalized, is our focus is the urban settlements. And that's why we had questions in the survey asking, would you support a green bin program? Would you support a whole composite program? And if you do or you don't, would you participate? And that helps us understand the needs of both urban and non-urban residents of Chatham-Kent. And so really the short answer is no, we're not trying to force that. It may still be council decision to make it a one standardized Chatham-Kent program as opposed to an urban or curbside program. But where we are thinking is that the focus of the collection residents already compost just naturally without even having necessarily a record of it. And so that's what we're trying to gauge is how valuable would it be for us to implement this in a rural area, and will there be a value for the taxpayers should we do so? And if we find that's not the case, then our recommendation to council would be either to reduce the size or the scale of a program, or to have different programs for different areas in Chatham-Kent. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Huda. And thank you, Scott and Melinda, for your comments and questions. For those listening in, please feel free to add your comments and questions. We have a team monitoring Facebook and YouTube to ensure our residents' questions and comments are heard and addressed. We're here to answer some of your questions. And while I wait for some more questions, why don't we jump on some of the questions that we compiled from our recently closed public survey and forum. So these are some common questions we receive about the organic waste diversion program. So I can ask maybe Ryan. We have a common question asking, why do some communities in Chatham-Kent receive curbside leaf and yard waste collection while others do not?
Thanks for the question, Chala. So Huda touched on it in the presentation, but the answer is that when the amalgamation discussions were occurring with Chatham-Kent, a team was put together to discuss service levels. And at the time, those groups decided that all the existing service levels of leaf and yard waste pickup would continue in the new municipality of Chatham-Kent. And so those service levels vary by community. As Huda mentioned, some are very high. In Ridgetown, they have a leaf vacuum, curbside brush pickup, curbside leaf pickup. And in other areas, it's just brush pickup. But those were all the service levels leading into 1998. And so over the years, those service levels have not changed. We have brought several reports to council. Administration has over the years to discuss the program and its costs and highlight it is a very highly used program in the communities that have it. And there have been discussions in the past about expanding it. However, as Huda mentioned, with the provincial target of reduction of organics program, it definitely puts a new spin on this, and looking at how we can perhaps enhance these services in areas that have never received it before. Whether that is going to more collection, whether it's going to more leaf and yard depots, I think the slate is clean to discuss what are the improvements. But I think all those things would lead to collecting more organics from that program, which, as you mentioned, would be cheaper long term to process them from a leaf and yard waste collection than it would be to implement them in a green bin or a brown bin program and send that to a facility to be processed. So I hope that answers your question. Happy to take any more.
And when you mentioned brown bin, some communities like, is it Montreal or somewhere in Quebec, they have brown bins where they compile everything together, yard waste and green bins. Yeah. Mostly in Ontario, green bins are in use. So I have another question that is asked in the surveys. Huda, this can go to you. How does this program fit into broader strategy of waste reduction and environmental sustainability in Chatham-Kent?
Thank you so much, Ala. And the short answer is we don't have a strategy. So there's no overarching long-term plan that has previously identified this as a need. But this is something that we are working on to develop such a plan in the long term next year. However, it does fit very well with Chatham-Kent's initiatives and strategic priorities towards environmental stewardship and environmental sustainability. One being the climate change action plan that is being undertaken by the municipality, and of course, the aim is by recovering more of the waste, we reduce the greenhouse gas emissions that are associated with that, and we may even add positive, like a net positive to the process by recovering that waste, especially if we end up doing that as part of the anaerobic digestion process, where we're going to end up with a renewable natural gas and not only recover the nutrients from those wastes. So it does fit very well with those goals and strategic council priorities. However, in terms of just waste management, long-term plan, this is something we're working on, and this will be, of course, something that we would have already embarked on, or at least studied. I don't know, Ryan, if you have any other comments on that question.
No, I think it's a great answer.
Thank you. So Ryan, with the survey answers Huda shared, like majority would agree if we have a green bin program, they would want to participate in the program. And some of the comments we receive, like implementing a green bin program might be expensive. Do we have the necessary budget in place to support this initiative? So taxpayers have some questions. So if you can give some answer to that.
Yeah, happy to, Joel. The first part of the question about budgeting is in the new multi-year budget process, which this was Chatham-Kent's first multi-year budget. there was money earmarked in that budget to start funding this kind of program. So what you're going to be seeing over the next year, 2025 budget update, there is some money earmarked in the budget already for this program. However, as we've discussed, we're still working on what's the ultimate solution. And so final costs cannot be guessed at until one really sets the level of service and flushes that out. But the reason we put that in the multi-year budget was knowing this is coming, knowing it is mandated by the province, to make sure that we're incorporating that in the municipality's long-term budgeting plans, so there's not just a 1-year huge tax increase because of this program. And the other key thing is, I think, why we're doing all this public engagement and why we're really spending our time to try to get this right is how do we meet the provincial targets at the lowest cost to Chatham-Kent residents at a service level they find acceptable and will actually participate in. Those are a couple different goals that we're really trying to balance here. Also on the back end, although this program will have to be funded through tax dollars because this is a service municipalities have to provide, we also had to think about the total cost. There's only one taxpayer. So whether you're paying municipal taxes, provincial taxes, or federal income taxes, there is a huge cost to Ontario's garbage problem, which is that we have lots of landfills that are running out of capacity. And the whole intention behind the province's mandate to reduce organics from landfills is to try to minimize the cost of landfills long term. Opening a new landfill, expanding landfills is incredibly expensive, which would be borne by residents anyway through the rates they have to pay to get their garbage collected. So it's maybe not such a direct correlation to your property taxes, but this is the intent of the program, is that Canada has and North America has a landfill problem, and this is one initiative to try to address that.
Thank you. We have a question from Tammy. So how many rural property owners in Chatham-Kent are excluded from any curbside collection service and would therefore be excluded from the curbside organic waste diversion program as well? If they continue to be excluded from the curbside service, will there be an option for the disposal of organic waste at the transfer stations? So Huda, maybe you can.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tammy, for the question. This is important and timely. So I do not know how many property owners that are rural and not in curbside collection areas, but I know this. There are about 8,900 households, residential households in Chatham-Kent that do not have curbside municipal service. You could have a private service that at the curb, but not through the municipality. And that represents about 20% of Chatham-Kent's population. And so these are the residents whose primary collection or primary disposal of their garbage and recycling is at these 8 drop-off depots, i.e. transfer stations. That's the first question, or the first part of the question. The second question, if we're going to have a green bin program, the curb or some kind of curb program, how will that be for the rural residents who do not have curbside service, and will that be at the transfer station? First, I do want to clarify that we have not finalized that determination whether or not a potential green program would only apply in the curbside areas, but this is it's more it's probably more natural as a change for that to happen than not. But again, that has not finalized. So should that be the case, though, we are asking for feedback on whether or not there would be value in implementing some type of community hub or some kind of a collection at the transfer stations. If we do so, then we will have a slight increase. Of course, relatively speaking, it'd be small cost compared to the curbside program. So, but there will be some increase in the operations at the transfer stations. And so we have 2 camps like what Scott said, that we already compost. We do this, it's been decades, and we don't need such addition. and we have others who would like to see something at transfer stations. And so we're trying to balance the needs and the demand, and whatever we would put forth to council will be based on feedback that we receive. It will be based on data that we have collected, and it will factor in costs for both options. So I do not have a finalized answer for you, Tammy, but this is something that we are exploring. I hope that kind of covers that.
Thanks, Huda. I'm just going to read a comment here. Chatham-Kent is not a city of 100,000 people. Please stop treating us such. It makes no sense to have trucks driving hundreds of miles of rural roads to pick up organic waste we can compost. So that's another view.
If I can, Chala, if I can comment on that, I want to actually echo that sentiment. We do not want to propose something that is wildly expensive and invaluable just because we want to copy a bigger city. That's not the case here. And that's why we're spending, as Ryan said, so much time and effort into determining the needs of Chatham-Kent. We're taking learnings from other municipalities, but we're going to customize that to the needs of Chatham-Kent. It's going to be a Chatham-Kent solution based on what our historical values and practices are, and looking into the future and how we want to be. So the idea is not to force down something that is just kind of maybe perceived as an urban city program into a rural regional municipality like Chatham-Kent. We're painfully aware of the number of kilometers in Chatham-Kent and the costs associated with driving down those long rural roads to collect very small amounts of waste, throughout. So we're painfully aware of that, and we're trying to meet the residents in the middle, where we're achieving the provincial targets, we're meeting their demands, and we're keeping that cost as low as possible.
And I will just add on to that. Huda mentioned that we are doing waste composition studies at the transfer stations as well. One part of that study, asking residents while they're dropping their waste, a couple of questions about if they are composting at their houses, and then if they are interested in anything to be having a separate program at the transfer station. So we are personally asking those questions at the transfer stations for the transfer station users. So, Huda, I have another common questions that we received through the forum and survey. It says, why is the implementation of this program taking so long? Can you provide some insight into the timeline? So they're asking, like, why are we're not reinventing the wheel? Other communities are done this. Why can't we just implement the same thing here? Why it's taking this much time? Why in 2027? So can you add some comments and information on that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Shala. So I think I've really touched base on the answer to that question here and there. One I will say is, of course, Chatham-Kent has its own unique story. It doesn't necessarily fit in a mold that is a cookie cutter type of situation. So we are taking some time to making sure that whatever we're proposing to council is something that is supported by the residents of Chatham-Kent and provide value to them. That's one reason why we're spending time. But if I can remind our audience to the process that we have. Let me try and find that. There must be a better way of doing this. There we go. So we're currently in 2024 doing program development, and this is spanning more than 3 years. The reason why is, again, it takes time to do our due diligence, and then it takes time to do procurement. If we end up doing a green bin program, if that's the case, then that means we need to put out a request for proposal, or either contract out that service or take it in-house. But what that requires are trucks for the green bin program, requires a processing facility for the green program. And to get both of these needs time, especially with the trucks. Buying any new trucks for a collection of waste is the timeline is 18 months to 24 months. So even if we are putting out our purchasing documents the first half of 2025, if we are very quick at doing so, and we do that in the first half of 2025, it'll take us into the end of 2026 for us to either receive those equipment or have the contractor receive that equipment. And so it's only possible then at the earliest time for a green bin program to be employed in 2027. And if you, in the next step slide, I did mention that there might be a chance for us to implement some of components of the program earlier. And that's the home compost program, for example. If it did go through and council did approve it, then this is something that we could do earlier in 2026, because again, the procurement wouldn't need as long as a timeline. But these really, it's the supply chain issues, as well as we've taken enough time for us to make sure we're doing our research. Thanks.
Thanks, Huda. In addition to that, we have the waste composition study that we're in the one part, so it will give us a baseline to understand the composition of the garbage we have. So I have also a comment here from Peter. We have family in Halifax, Kitchener, and Mississauga, and when there, we're composting. We're quite used to doing it, finding it very easy to do. Always feels strange not to be doing here. So yeah, thanks, Peter, for your comment. We hear that in a survey and in a forum. Whoever lived somewhere else or have family other regions, most of them are loving it, what they do with the green bin, and then wants to implement here. We are looking forward to what the feasibility study brings us. So I can ask another common question. Like we kind of touched base most of them. So I can ask maybe Ryan, will this program be rolled out? Will it be available across all areas? But we kind of mentioned that. I don't know if you want to mention anything.
No, I think
yeah.
I think Huda did a good job explaining it, and we understand that Chatham-Kent has large urban centers and it has a large rural population. I live in a rural area myself. I compost, and probably the organics in my garbage bag is very low, and so but through our waste audit, we have to confirm that, and that's some of the data that we're doing right now. And I agree with Scott's comment. It's probably not very cost effective to drive all 1,700 kilometers to pick up a very small amount of compost. But part of the process of our due diligence is to go through this, finding out what the needs are in the community. How do we build a program to best address that? And I believe it was mentioned in one of the other comments that maybe everybody doesn't want a composter at home. For one reason or another, is there an option at a transfer station to have an organics collection? That's still on the table, and that's the whole point of these feedback meetings. We're trying to hear different opinions that we may not have thought of. But Chatham-Kent is a geographically large municipality, and there probably isn't a one-size-fits-all solution like there would be in City of Windsor, for example, that has a very urban cross section.
Thanks for the answer. Huda, you mentioned in your slides, but I will also come back to that again. One of the questions we've been hearing, are there any plans to expand leaf and yard waste collection program? If you can.
Yeah, I can definitely maybe highlight this a little bit further. Yes, there are plans. We are looking into how valuable it would be for us to expand this program. As Ryan mentioned, this is a program that is quite fragmented, provided to some communities and not the majority of communities. And those who receive it also have varying levels of service, different levels of cost, different levels of materials that's collected. So we're definitely interested in learning how we can leverage that existing leaf and yard collection system, enhance it for us to achieve as much as possible of that 50%. organic waste diversion and reduction in the that's set by the province, and also considering other factors such as costs, such as the different sections of Chatham-Kent and the urban and rural needs, as well as the equity between different urban centers and or between urban versus rural in Chatham-Kent.
If I could just add to that, Huda, too, I know it's pretty widely known, but just to confirm for those watching, those who receive leaf and yard waste pickup in their community today pay an additional levy on their taxes. So when you see your tax bill, there'll be a breakdown of different services you provide, and so that's what they call area rated. And so, for instance, if you live in Ridgetown and get curbside leaf vacuuming, you pay an area rated service, so that your neighbor out in a rural area who doesn't get that service isn't paying for it. So that's something that also has to be considered when thinking about curbside leaf and yard waste service level changes, is how they are funded. Because currently, say, residents in Chatham do not pay for that service.
If I might just take that further, it's a very similar system that we use for our waste collection. So everybody in Chatham-Kent pays a portion of their levy towards the operations and the maintenance of the transfer stations and our facilities for waste collection. Yet those who receive curbside are the only ones who pay for that service. So if I am a resident in say Raleigh, and I am dedicated or designated to a transfer station, and I do not have curbside through the municipality, then my taxes are only for that transfer station that I use, which I would say that's very valuable bang for the buck if you know the numbers, which we could happily share in our next PIC. But if I live in the city of Chatham or the community of Chatham, then there is an extra that I'm paying, even if I don't see it in my taxes.
Thank you both. I don't have any other questions that I compiled. And for those who are live, if you have any more questions or comments, feel free to write them. If not, thank you for your excellent questions and comments. And participating actively tonight's session. I want to remind you again that we will be holding an in-person public information session at the John D. Bradley Center in Chatham on August 27th and 5 to 7:30. This will be another great opportunity to engage with our team and learn more about the Organic Waste Diversion Program. So I have one more question. From Tammy. If the purpose of the Organic Waste Diversion Program is to reduce waste going to landfill, shouldn't there be a reduction in curbside garbage collection, therefore cost savings? Do you want to mention that, Huda?
Sure.
Answer.
Thank you for the question. There's a fine balance. I would say there's a fine balance between accommodating the majority of our residents' needs in terms of how much garbage they generate, and also reducing the amount of waste that's at the curb. Of course, our aim as a waste management team is to provide opportunities, incentives, and education for our residents to reduce that garbage that they bring out at the curb every week, even if we don't have an organic waste program. This is done usually through incentives and a lot of education promotion. We are enhancing our efforts with our education process. We are keeping track of how much tonnage we produce and send to the landfill every year. Unfortunately, we have seen an increase in the past few years that can be partially attributed to increase in population, partially attributed to the COVID effect. But we're hoping to get back on track, and through our waste composition audits, through enhanced information and sharing with the public and education, we could see that number going down. And yes, the ultimate goal is to have less garbage generated. If we do so, this starts with us. Each one of us is responsible for the garbage we produce at our homes, and the less we do it, then the less that goes at the curb, the less gets collected, the less gets in the landfill.
Yes, thank you. And then Yeah, thanks for attending and thanks for all the comments. And if you have any other comments or questions, we invite everyone to keep the conversation going on Let's Talk chathamkent.ca /organic waste. And please participate in the forum and visit this page regularly because we update the information there whenever we have a new uh, information available, a report available, we upload there. And your input is always valuable. We look forward to hearing from you. And thank you once again joining us tonight. We appreciate your time and your commitment making our community a better place. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.